Smash that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, and like the video.
Check us out on YouTube at Idaho Farm Boy. See you there.
This is the FarmBoy's podcast with USA national team player, LOVB, Salt Lake City pro, and former BYU All-American Ronnie Jones-Perry.
I'm Ronnie Jones-Perry. I'm from West Jordan, Utah. I've lived here most of my life. I play professional volleyball now. I played collegiately at BYU. I'm going into my 7th season as a pro. And up until this last year, most of that has been international. So I've played in Poland, Italy, Brazil. And then between those seasons, I've done some stints with the U.S. national team. So this last summer was kind of my biggest chunk of time with them. I was on their main roster for a pretty big tournament called Volleyball Nations League. And yeah, so really it's been just a lot of volleyball all over the world for the last, 6 years. And then prior to that, it was a lot of volleyball here in the state. That's pretty much what I do.
Nice.
Yeah.
So let's kind of start at the beginning, not the very beginning, but when did you realize that volleyball wasn't just something you loved, but something that you could really pursue at the highest level?
Good question. I think I grew up kind of a kid that just wanted to be told good job. I was a hard worker. I was going to do what parents or coaches or whoever told me to do that would help me to be great. And so that is something that I think kind of came naturally to me, just kind of that hard work, discipline, all of that. And then as I got into volleyball and the people around me, like my teammates and stuff, were starting talking about recruiting and trying to earn scholarships for school and things like that. I was like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. That's something that I should do. And then similarly, once I got to BYU and was playing there, one of my teammates, she was looking to go play professionally. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. I love this sport. If I can get paid to do it, I would love to do that. So I wasn't somebody who at like 12 was like, I have this whole roadmap lined up. It was kind of like I took it a chunk as I went. And then just had this consistent, I just want to be the best that I can and see how far I can take this sport.
Cool. So was there a who or a what that gave you belief that you could go further than almost anybody else?
Honestly, no. I think that there's been quite a bit of, I don't want to say self-doubt because that feels like a lot bigger than maybe it is, but I don't think that I was ever really told by a ton of people around me, you can absolutely do that. But let me back up and say, I do have great family and friends and people who are always like, I believe in you. You can go do whatever you want to do. But as far as an expert in the field, I don't think that there was a ton of people telling me yeah, you're going to be the next great. I was I started playing volleyball a little bit late. And so then I was always kind of playing catch up just a little bit. Once I got into college, it wasn't like I was slated to be a starter. I wasn't this big recruit. And then similar as my career progressed, it was oh, this kid could probably go do something professionally and do well. But I definitely wasn't top of the list for our national team or anything like that. So hopefully that answers that question. It's kind of a little bit roundabout, but
No, that makes sense. So when you look back, was there a moment where you felt yourself wow, I've gotten really good. Being professional is something that I could really do at the high and even be an Olympic athlete?
I would say probably, the Olympic athlete part is still, I'm can I do it? I don't know. We'll see. But playing professionally, I would say probably my senior year at BYU. I think my career there, as a freshman, I was really in and out. Sophomore year, I had an injury that kept me out for half of the season. And then once I came back from that, I was playing a little more consistently. My junior year is really when I started playing pretty consistently, but still wasn't really our go-to player. That didn't really start happening for me until my senior year. And so that was probably when I was okay, yeah, I could go do something with this.
So something that you didn't mention, at BYU, you were an All-American.
Yeah.
So going from not a big time recruit to this All-American, what did those 4 years teach you about being a leader and being able to compete at the highest level?
Great question. I think I was really lucky, first of all, to go play collegiate sports when I did. I think before NIL, before the transfer portal and all of those things that are kind of making things a bit messy right now. And great. I think it's great that athletes are getting paid. I think they should be getting paid, but it creates some issues. The culture at BYU was very very much about building a team, and it was about the team is above the individual. And we were really big on just the growth mindset and like chipping away and getting 1% better every day. And so I really just fully bought into that. And so I was bought into what they were teaching. I was bought into the culture that they were building, and I was surrounded by a bunch of girls who did the same. So I think between the coaching staff there and the girls there, it just really created a good space for me to buy into that type of process over 4 years and be in that type of atmosphere for 4 years. And it allowed me to grow a ton, like skills wise on the court. And then also like mental toughness and being a good teammate and what that looks like, and figuring out how to have hard conversations that build a group. So I think that's kind of where that all came in for me.
Cool. So can you pinpoint a match and from what it sounds like your senior season, you really, hit it, but was it your senior season, or was there a match or anything that, everything just clicked and you're like, okay, wow, this is where I've wanted to be?
There's a couple standout matches for me from my senior season. But it was really rare. Like, it sounds cliche, but it was really rare that I was looking at it from the lens of like, wow, I've made it. It was a lot more of, we've really created something cool here. And like, I believe in my team, and I believe that we can go battle anybody in the country and do well. And I would say one of those was really early in my senior season. We played against Stanford, who was number 1 at the time, and beat them. And it was just it was really back and forth. It was a great volleyball match. And we came out on top. I mean, it went 5 sets, and that's kind of a coin toss. You never know who's going to win that game. So that was huge for us as a group, I think. And then in the tournament run that year, we played Texas at home, and we had lost to Texas in the same round of the tournament 2 years earlier. And that game we had like every opportunity to win. I think we were up like 14-9 my sophomore year, and we ended up losing in the 5th set, which is just like crazy odds. That doesn't happen. And so that match that we played them at home my senior year, we were down in all of the sets, and we ended up sweeping. So that for me was just like, we are a very tough team. Like, we don't say die. We're never going to roll over and give any team anything. So I think those two were kind of those matches for me.
So the culture at BYU really fit your personality. How did it coming in, and then, going from, maybe a lower level recruit to All-American, how did that shape you, that culture shape you as not only a player, but as who you are today?
Yeah, I think it did a ton to shape me. I think me being able to go to a program where I could buy in and know that I was going to get pushed every day, and they were going to develop my skills both on and off the court, and they were going to push me to be my best and make me uncomfortable. I think that's like, I could go to any other program that has a great team, but if I'm not getting pushed that way, I don't think that I personally would be playing volleyball post-college. I needed to develop a lot in those years. And then I just think there's a lot of things that I learned about volleyball, and maybe not even volleyball, just pursuit of your best at BYU, that after leaving there and seeing how other coaches and other programs do it, there's just certain ways that BYU did things that I'm like, I really believe that that's the way that I want to continue doing these things in the future. Part of it really just being that like growth mindset, being in the present and not letting any one moment determine anything for you. Like, can I just take everything one day at a time, one practice at a time, and really show up my fullest in that moment, regardless of what has happened, regardless of what's coming up.
I think that's really important for club players, even kids that are in college right now, to hear. That's such a great mindset. So all these experiences at BYU prepared you for something even bigger. You went pro, but you've got to represent Team USA. So what was it like putting on the USA jersey for the first time?
Oh, it was crazy. My first USA experience with the senior national team was right after I graduated from BYU. And I didn't realize it at the time how lucky it was, but we were playing in Colorado Springs. Like, that's where the tournament was being held. And since then, there's been one situation where I've played in a USA jersey in the USA, and it was this last summer. So it was super lucky. I didn't fully grasp how lucky it was at the time, but yeah, we played in Colorado Springs. It was a Pan American tournament, so it's kind of a regional tournament instead of the global ones. And we play against Dominican Republic, is usually kind kind of like our toughest competition in those tournaments. And we played against them in the final and won. And I was just kind of at the time, I was like, cool, like USA wins. Of course we win, you know? And then now I'm like, it is really tough to beat that team and super rare to play at home. So I think I didn't realize how cool that experience was for me in the moment, but looking back, it's like that was a really, really cool opportunity to play at home and to win a gold medal. Like winning a gold medal in a national team jersey, regardless of the tournament, is never an easy thing to do.
Yeah, that is awesome. So you got to play internationally, and obviously, you know, being on the US team, you play international teams. What's the difference between like your national team system per se, and you don't have to get real specific here, but and then going overseas and playing? I would assume there's a different philosophy and difference in the systems there.
Yeah, and I would say it varies country to country. So I like first and foremost, the biggest difference between the way that we play volleyball here in the States in club and college, and then every other volleyball in the world, our national team included, is the substitution rule. It's very, very different. So growing up in volleyball and even through college, you can be someone who's great at attacking, but you don't need to be able to pass. You don't really need to be able to play defense. Like you can kind of skate by just attacking. Internationally, if you're an outside hitter or an opposite, you have to stay in the game the whole time. You have to play along the front row. You have to play along the back row. So you have to be good at volleyball. You can't just be good at attacking and blocking. So I think that's a really big difference between what people are used to here and what you get into post-college. And then just country to country, there's some differences. Like I spent quite a bit of time in Poland, and they're very good ball control in general. Like they don't have as many huge physical athletes, but they're really good at passing. They're really good at just controlling the ball up where they want it to go. So they'll run a pretty quick offense. Their liberos, if they're out of system setting, will jump set with tempo. Like it's just a really good ball control league. The serving's incredibly tough. Whereas Brazil, they're good at ball control, but they're very, very physical. So in Brazil, you're going to have a lot more people just going and ripping the ball super hard. Usually their liberos are better at like getting underneath super hard driven things, where I would say like liberos in some of the other leagues like Poland, they're a little bit better at like reading certain shots and picking things up. They're like, you have to beat me with strength. Where in Brazil, they're like, bring on all the strength, all the power, I'm going to dig it. So, and it's like every country you could pick out like subtle differences, but those are the two I know the most about.
Cool. So what do you think is the biggest difference that you've noticed between a really good international player and then like the greats?
I think most of the greats just have something about them that is just so different from anybody else. And it's like they're good at all the technical things. And you have this like top echelon of volleyball players who can all do a lot of things at a similar level. And then like the best of the best, they just have like those one or two things that it's like, yeah, nobody can do that like that. Like it's just, they're just that good. I think some good examples are there are a couple opposites in the world right now that are just really big and long and tall and they jump well. But then they have these kind of different arm swings where it's like they're just hitting shots that other people can't really hit. And then people aren't used to seeing it. So it's really hard to defend.
Cool. Yeah. So now you play for Love.
Yeah.
Love is bringing volleyball back to the U.S. They do have some competition. We won't even mention that other league. But what excites you most about being a part of Love?
I have a very selfish answer to that question. Then I have like more of a volleyball community answer to that question. Selfishly, I mean, there's a team in Salt Lake City, and I'm from West Jordan, like 20 minutes outside of Salt Lake. And I get to build relationships with my nieces and nephews. I get to be here with my sisters and my grandparents. And I have family in the stands, and I can go to birthday parties. And like, I'm just living a much more normal feeling, like full life. Whereas when I'm playing overseas, like I'm missing Christmas, I'm missing Thanksgiving, no chance I'm at a birthday party, you know? So, and my family hadn't seen me play in like 5 years. My parents were able to come over and watch me in Brazil, but outside of that, nobody knew. And I'm really close with my family. My husband, I'm close with his family as well. And we have a bunch of nieces and nephews who, for like most of their lives, we were gone for 8 months of the year. So I think creating like real relationships with them and them getting to see what I've been telling them I'm doing for the last 5 years has been really special. And then the volleyball side of it, growing up, I had no clue that there was volleyball past college. Like I thought college volleyball was it. And so I'm excited that these kids are seeing professional volleyball players and hearing about our stories and just kind of having their eyes opened up to everything that there is in volleyball, and what that level looks like and what the dedication looks like and the sacrifices. And they just have more access to us as well. So we're practicing at Club V, which is the biggest club in Utah. And there's tons of girls who are there and they're like brushing shoulders with us and they can ask us questions and watch our practices and just all this stuff where it's like they're really going to have a way bigger vision for themselves of what volleyball can be.
Yeah. What has been the biggest surprise that you found playing professionally in Love versus how it was professionally overseas?
Ooh, the biggest surprise. I would say maybe not surprise, but something that's just really different is everybody knows everybody in this league. Like you go overseas and things can feel a little bit isolating, and it's like you make some friends here and there and maybe you're lucky and there's some other Americans playing in the league. Where here it's like every team you play against, half of your team has played with or against them at some point. So there's just a lot more familiarity, which is fun in the way where it's like when we're traveling and on the road, like you're just meeting up with a bunch of people that usually you wouldn't get to see that much. And then also it adds that layer within the game to where it's like people really know each other. And so it's like you're getting defended a little bit easier. There's a little bit more chippiness through the net every once in a while. Like it just kind of adds that friendly competition to it. So
it sounds like there's a big difference in culture because of that.
Yeah, I would say so.
Wow. So is there anything that you would take from international overseas, even Team USA, and bring it to Love?
Yeah, I think in general, Love has done a really great job at keeping communication open between all the players and the league. So I think a lot of decisions within the league are being made through that lens anyway. And so it's not like I'm needing to do a ton of that work or like start that conversation because it's already being had, like it was being had right off the bat. And it's kind of an interesting league because they want to bridge the gap between what international volleyball looks like and what collegiate volleyball here looks like. For a couple of reasons, I think it'll make that transition easier for girls who are coming out of college and want to go play. And it makes the transition a little bit easier for fans who have only ever known college volleyball. I think if it's just like all of a sudden we're throwing international rules and style and everything in their face, it's going to be a little bit like, this isn't what I'm used to. Yeah. So they're kind of trying to find a blend, which has its own challenges too. But I think they're doing a really good job just trying to keep all of these different things in mind and find a good middle.
So really diving into Love, and the reason I'm diving in here is because talking to some people before, even some club kids, really want to know a lot about Love. Like, well, how did she hear about Love? Did they contact her? Did she contact them? So if you could kind of run down a little story, what did Love reach out to you directly? Did you have to express interest? Do you have an agent for that? Tell us your story a little bit here.
So first thing, just like basic structure, most girls have an agent. So usually when it's like negotiation season, which is usually early spring, late winter-ish, they'll start talking to different club teams. And like club teams are like, hey, we need an outside, who do you have? Or whatever. So those conversations start being had. With Love, they kind of started having conversations earlier because they needed to. It's a new league. They kind of got to jump on it. And so I think I was hearing some rumblings about it before my agent brought me anything official. And then that was also a big difference with Love to like normal negotiating for other overseas contracts is I was personally talking to people within this league frequently, where usually overseas, everything's done through my agent. He's like, hey, what do you think about this? And I'm like, well, I'd like to see this adjusted, or I want to know these things before we take this any further. Where League One, I think because there's so many familiar faces and people that like I kind of had a little bit of a relationship with, it felt easier to just jump on a call and ask them the questions and have them explain to me like, hey, this is what our thoughts are. Here's why I don't have a solid answer to that yet. So yeah, typically it would be my agent, but with League One, it was a little more direct coming from them. And then it still was like, okay, but I still have these other options. Like what's going to be the best fit for me? And really this one came down to, I wanted to be at home. Like I said, it was really special for me to have this opportunity. I can't tell you how many times I was overseas and just like kind of in a brutal moment and saying to my husband, like, if I could do this at home, I would do it forever. And I'm like, but when volleyball's hard and I'm far from my family and I can't just walk into a grocery store and read labels on things, like everything I'm doing is difficult right now. And volleyball feels like crap. So I'm like, why am I doing this? Versus if I could go play at home and have a normal life and go play volleyball. And if it's hard, like everybody has moments where their job is hard. That's normal. So And then I heard about this and I was like, that's actually insane. Not only is there a league in the States, but I could live in my house and play for this team. So it just eventually I was like, how could I ever turn that down?
Were you able to choose? Is that a negotiation your agent has to be able to say, she's really interested if it's in Salt Lake?
That was, I like repeatedly told them that. So initially with League One, they wouldn't put your on your contract, they wouldn't put the city that you're going to be playing in on it. So even after all the conversations I had with them, I ended up signing a contract that just said, I'll play at whatever team they tell me I need to play at, which was terrifying for me. But I had a lot of conversations with people who luckily I could trust, who said, listen, we would be really not great at our jobs if we put you in a city that wasn't Salt Lake. I was like, okay. But because for me, it wasn't living in the States, it was living at home. Like if there wasn't a team in Salt Lake City, I don't know that I would have came here to play.
Wow, that's interesting. So obviously, so that location being number one in the factor that made you decide this. So was there a close second? Was there a second and third that you're like, if I have to be at a different state, then here's what I compare Arizona. No, they don't have one. Omaha, whoever, to being over in Poland or whatever. What other factors, if it wouldn't have been location, would you have determined this?
So kind of a tricky question. A piece of my hesitation in coming back here is I was at a point in my career, like I am at a point in my career right now where I've created a name for myself. I'm getting the best contract offers I have up until this point. And quite frankly, like League One just doesn't have the money or the resources that a lot of these better established leagues overseas do. And it doesn't have the global respect of some of the other leagues yet. People are super interested. They're paying attention. Sure. There's obviously a ton of talent playing here, but it's going to be a question mark. Of course, it's a question mark. Yeah. And so for me, it was like, again, like I still had to think long and hard about coming to play in Salt Lake, and it is in my home. And that's always something that's like kind of felt impossible to me. And then it was presented, so I just was finally getting these opportunities to play in these countries that I've been working for and grinding for 4 or 5 years prior. So for me, it was a little bit of a bunch of factors, not necessarily just the location, but if I was going to give up these opportunities that I've worked so hard for in a situation that genuinely could be me giving it up, like if League One goes poorly or I'm not playing or whatever, then my opportunity to get offers at those teams again in the future, like it's not guaranteed, I guess is what I'm saying. So it was a lot of factors going into it. And so for me, it's like, if I'm still going to be a flight away from seeing any of my family and I'm still not going to be able to have dinner on Sundays with them or whatever, like, is it worth giving up all these other things?
Yeah. And being on that national team, I'm assuming that everybody wants national team players, U.S. national team players, Brazil, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it helps. It's a good thing to have on your resume, I guess.
How would you say the level of competition is with Love compared to overseas with what you've experienced?
Yeah, it's an interesting thing to try to compare because teams overseas have been together and playing with the same core for years and years and years and years. Where
Gotcha.
League One, we have a ton of talent. We have brand new coaches. Honestly, like most of the coaching staffs, like again, it's a startup. So in an ideal world, we would have like 4 or 5 coaches. Right now we have 2. And so there's just a lot of factors where it's like teams are trying to build their identity. Coaches are trying to figure out how to not only navigate all of this talent that they have, but also the entire league and how to run everything with way less hands than they typically would have. So it's really, as much as like at a quick glance, it seems like it could be an apples to apples comparison. It's really not. But I think when these teams are flowing and playing great, they could compete with a lot of the best teams in the world. I wouldn't say that they're going to be like the best team in the world. There's some really gnarly teams out there who have played together for years and years. And they have insane money and resources and all the things. And I think they'll stay the best in the world for a while. But
yeah. Do you know if Love has any ambition or any plans to want to somehow compete, whether it's like a friendlies tournament or go overseas and have the Love teams compete against anybody internationally?
Short answer, I don't know the answer to that question. Sure. I hope that they do. I think that a lot of people hope that at some point. There's also tournaments within a professional season. There's like Club World Championships and like these different European type things. They do the same in in like Asia and South America, they have these just kind of like international interleague tournaments during a season and throughout a season. And I would hope that eventually League One gets invited into or asked to join one of those types of things. So we're just a little bit more out there on the global scene.
Yeah. Well, thank you for bearing with me on the love questions. It's a hot topic, but let's get into a little bit more of you, training and performance. How do you keep your body and mind sharp during the grind of all these seasons?
Good question. I think part of it kind of just depends what chunk of the year I'm in. So if I'm in season, it's going to look a little different than if I'm out of season. This year has been a little bit more tricky, I guess, for me. Like typically after professional season, I would have some chunk of time off before I would start with national team. Because prior to this year, I was just doing like Pan American Cup or something like that, which is just a shorter chunk. For the tournament I did this year, I was in California training with the team a week after I finished with League One and then didn't get back home until the middle of August. So that was very different for me. But I work with a strength coach who is just kind of like my go-to guy. If I have something that's like flaring up a little bit, I'm like, hey, what should I do about this? What do you think? And so then we're just kind of like constantly problem solving and figuring out how to keep my body feeling good and ready to go. And then when I do have a chunk of time off, it's like one of my favorite parts of what I do, which maybe is like backwards to most athletes, but I really love just having a prep period where things that have been kind of put on the back burner, I'm like, okay, I can really like dig into this now and get my body feeling great. And then the mental side of things, I'm a big journaler. I like to meditate. So just kind of having a chunk of the day that I can just kind of unplug from everything else and just kind of be here with me and just reflect on how things are going, where I want to be going. And then the meditation is just good for practicing being present. Kind of helps me take the day a chunk at a time instead of feeling like I'm everywhere.
So during the season, when you're in competition, do you have a routine that you go through for, normal days and then game days?
I mean, the routines kind of get built in a little bit. I'm not someone that's like superstitious where it's like I got to eat the same things or I like have to have the exact same feeling day. I know a lot of athletes love to have that like real routine feel going into things. I used to be that way. Actually, that's something at BYU we did a lot of. And then the longer I've played, the more I'm just like, man, it feels exhausting to have a game day when my game day needs to be all of these things every single time, instead of just like, okay, I have serve and pass in the morning and then I have this chunk of time. If I feel tired, I'll take a nap. If not, I'm going to go on a walk or whatever. So it's a little bit more like I make sure I'm on top of my nutrition. I make sure that I'm resting when I need to. And outside of that, I really like to just take things a day at a time. So
how do you determine your nutrition? Do you have somebody like a nutritionist or registered dietitian that helps you, or do you do that on your own?
I, throughout my career, have had opportunities to like have conversations with and work with different nutritionists or dietitians. At this point, I kind of know what works for me. Like I'm a big, like I got to have a big, not hearty, but I'm usually an overnight oats girl in the morning. I'm kind of burnt out of that right now, which is really weird. And then like on a game day or if I have an evening practice, I like to have usually chicken and rice or something like that about 3 or 4 hours prior and then a quicker snack right before. And then I just kind of fill in the rest of my needs around that, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Do you have any pre-game rituals that lock you in mentally? I mean, you said you meditate. Do you do that before games? What do you do to get yourself mentally locked in?
I'm someone, so I kind of move slow as I'm getting ready for things. So I just like to get to the locker room with plenty of time so that I can like get physically ready, like get whatever aches or pains or things that need extra time moving. And then I think when I'm in that space, it's easy for me to start focusing on the things that I have coming in that game. So I don't like we have a scouting report and I very rarely pull it out at home unless there's something that I want to watch more video on. I would really prefer to keep that in a volleyball space. So when I get to the locker room early and I'm rolling out or I'm getting ready, that's where I'll pull out my scout and I'll kind of look at these things. And usually I'll have a little conversation with someone in my position group like, hey, so with this girl, we're blocking cross. And when she's attacking this ball, we're taking one step here, whatever. So I think just kind of like verbally going through the game plan with somebody and then just being in that space space for some time so I don't feel like I'm rushed and then all of a sudden out on the court. It's kind of the closest thing to routine I have, I guess.
Okay. So you've had a very long career and are still going, obviously. And usually everybody has some tough moments, right? So can you share one of your tough moments or challenging moments where you felt like, gosh, this is really going to set me back, but maybe it was fuel to grow even better?
Yeah, I would say my second year playing professionally overseas was just really brutal. The timing of all that for me, so my first season at the tail end of it is when COVID started. And so, yeah, a lot of people got stuck overseas. I was in a really lucky situation where my team was going to be playing for 9th or 10th in the playoffs, which is like it matters the least of all the other playoff games that are happening. So we were the first teams that they're like, you guys just get out of here, go home. So I got out before things got really messy with travel. Anyway, that's kind of beside the point. But then my next season, when I went back overseas, getting visas and things for travel was very difficult. I was going to Poland. I had on my contract that the club had to bring my husband. So they were in charge of his visa, his travel, all the things they were required to get him there with me. They told me that they couldn't quite get his yet, but it would be done in 2 weeks, but I needed to travel out there and then he would meet me out there in a couple weeks. I was like, great. So I jump on the plane, I get out there. And then my first day at practice, I walk into the gym and a reporter's like, hi, how do you feel about your change in position to attacker? And I was like, I'm like jet lagged. I don't really know what's going on. I'm like, this has got to be just a weird translation. So I just gave like a kind of bullcrap answer. I'm like, yeah, whatever the team needs, like, we'll be good, you know? And then immediately go talk to the coach and he's like, yeah, so we don't have an opposite and we're really hoping to play you on the opposite. We'll get you some opportunity over on the outside too, but we're thinking about mostly having you on the opposite because we don't have one. And I was like, okay. So that happened. So I'm kind of fighting with them over that. And then they stopped working on my husband's visa. So I'm just like in this situation where I feel like I'm being lied to by this club. There's no other foreigners on my team. So it's just me and a bunch of Polish girls who were all great, but they were also like pretty young and didn't understand what it's like to be living overseas. There just wasn't a ton of like reaching out and trying to help me. So just mentally, emotionally, I was being challenged. And then I was playing as an opposite. And I'm like, this isn't like the national team had told me, they're like, look, if you want a chance in our gym, like you got to be on the outside. You're just not big enough to be an opposite for us. And so, yeah, it was super challenging. It was a setback as far as finding a contract for the next season because now everybody's looking at me as an opposite. They don't know if I can play on the outside. They don't have any video of that in their league, you know? I ended up having a really great season, which also was like, oh man, maybe I should think about this. But I ended up being out there for 5 months without my husband, like battling with the team about the visa thing, battling with the team about putting me on the outside. And then towards the end of that season, they stopped paying me. So it was really just like a mess. And after how difficult it was, I was really like, I don't know if I want to go back overseas, but I'm not ready to be done playing. So it was just really challenging. The following season, I actually ended up playing in Poland again for a different team. And luckily they offered me a spot as an outside hitter. And so that kind of got things back on track. But that was a long chunk of just like, who knows what's going to happen. So that was probably my biggest challenge.
Yeah. Do you think playing the opposite contributed to maybe where you're at today?
I think it definitely gave me a lot of space to just go be good at attacking. And there's also something about attacking on the right side of the net that it's just, you have to be, in my opinion, you have to be better at really getting your feet to the ball and getting yourself in a position to take a full swing as a right-handed hitter over there. For the left, you can kind of get away with things getting out in front of you a little bit or behind your head a little bit and still see and still have a decent amount of control. So I think it developed that for me quite a bit. And then like I was hitting out of the back row on the right side of the court, just things that like I had never really spent a ton of time doing. And then on the flip side of that, it was a full season of me not getting a ton of passing reps, which was like, that's really for my entire career has been what's held me back the most as an outside hitter. And again, it kind of stems from this difference in rules that we grew up in here compared to the rest of the world. So just on the like big scale, I've passed way less balls than most of the girls that I'm competing against internationally. And so that season was not helpful in that.
Yeah. So that sounds like, you don't want to quit, but there's a possibility. Besides that time, have you ever come close to burning out?
Absolutely. Maybe like once every 2 months.
What pulls you through? What gets you through that?
A lot of things. I mean, sometimes it's thinking about the joy that I have being with my teammates and operating on a team. I think being able to work on a team the way that you get to in sports is really special, and it's very real to me that that isn't always going to be guaranteed. And it's been a part of my life forever. And so walking away from the sport, that's a piece of it that really scares me. Is I love being a part of a team. And then another thing is like, what am I going to go do? Like work a 9 to 5 and hate my job half the time, you know?
Yep.
And that sounds a little dumb, but like, and I know like I have some hopes and things that I want to do after volleyball that I think I'll really enjoy. But I think just the fact, like knowing that regardless of what I'm doing, there's going to be chunks of time that I don't enjoy it. And I'm like, what am I doing? Kind of just grounds me back in reality of like everything sucks sometimes. So
Yeah.
get through the week.
So let's go there. Volleyball disappeared tomorrow. What would Ronnie Jones Perry be doing?
So right now, I'm really leaning towards doing something in like the strength and conditioning or mentoring, or I want to be involved in sports. I want to work with athletes. In this moment, I don't feel super motivated to coach a team. I don't see myself ever like completely walking away from volleyball, especially. I think there's just such a need for good youth coaches, and I do think that I can fill that role. But that's not like what I want to do with most of my time, if that makes sense. So I think that a piece of my time will be spent doing that. The most powerful support that I've ever had as an athlete has always come from some sort of third party coach involved in the team. Usually it's my strength and conditioning coach. I just think that they have a space to fully support every athlete that walks in their door who's ready to work hard without there being any sort of stipulation over performance. Where a sports coach, there's always some amount of like, your job as a coach is to help a team win and to help athletes grow. And a piece of that is you have, like, it's not going to be fair all the time, you know, where a strength coach, like, I can support you and I can push you regardless of what you're doing on the court, regardless if you have an injury or not. Like, you're still going to be as important to me when you walk in this door as anybody else is. And I like that space, and that's kind of what I want to fill.
Yeah. One day it's going to be done, right? You're going to be done playing. You're going to be moving on. When people look back, what do you hope they'll say about you?
The people who like really know me and got to play with me, I hope that they would say I was a great teammate and that I was somebody that they enjoyed being around and playing next to. And sports, for me, a lot of it, the best parts are the relationship. And so I hope that I can be great at that regardless of how I'm playing, which is not always an easy thing to do. So people listening who are like, yeah, right. I'm like, look, I get it. It can be hard when you're not feeling your best. And then people who are watching me, I hope that I can be an athlete that people can look at and be like, yeah, she's going for it. Like, she's courageous and she's still, again, like being a good teammate and supporting the people around her. That's kind of the, like, if I had a kid looking up to an athlete, I hope they would look up to somebody who is brave and is willing to make mistakes and go for it, but is still going to be connecting with the people around them. And that's kind of what I hope to be.
The last question here for you, building off what you just said, and we won't necessarily narrow it down to one piece of advice, but if you could go back and talk to yourself or talk to youth on here, what kind of advice would you give about volleyball, life, pressure, whatever it may be? What would you want everybody to hear? What do you think is most important?
I think I actually had a conversation with a couple people about this yesterday. It's really easy to get sucked into hopes or regrets or things that you want to have happen for you in the future, like, you know, wallowing in a performance that you weren't super pumped about or whatever. And it takes you away from where you're at. And I think the better that we can be at just really fully being present and enjoying the people that are around us and enjoying the fact that like we get to go to practice every day and work on getting better at skills, you know, even if I had a crappy game yesterday, like I get to show up in the gym tomorrow and keep working on things and be around people who want to help me get better. So short answer is just be like, how present can you be? How well can you be exactly where your feet are and enjoying the people and the spaces and the things around you while still being disciplined and like working towards goals you have in the future. But the more time you spend thinking about that future, the less you have control over it and the less you can enjoy the steps along the way. Like, it's super cliche, but again, it's not an easy thing to do. And there's a lot of chunks of my career that I didn't do that very well. And I wish I had.